Can you see and hear me okay?
Yes.
So just by way of introduction, my name is Proctor. I work in Burro Happold's energy team and head up smart energy offering that we provide, working closely as part of a team of about 45 people in the UK across heat and power. And as part of that, we do local area planning, and we're also leading on the engineering aspects of community, which we'll touch on in a bit as well. Just start the slide pack. So also as a bit of personal background as well, I've had a lot to do with local area planning since the concept of local area energy planning. I joined the Energy Technologies Institute about 10 years ago, where the concept of local area planning was conceived, and directly managed the Smart Systems and Heat program, which built and developed the modelling suite in what's now the Energy Systems Catapult, and the offering for local area planning, which has continued to evolve since I was involved with it. But the original concept I'm very familiar with from the start. So a very brief history for people that don't really know what this is about or where it's come from. You know, back in the day when this was conceived, the idea of the way that the energy system was changing, and what needed to happen to make it change to hit government climate change targets. And it was felt that there was an integrated approach that was needed to this, because business models, technology solutions, etc., were going to change, in the way that the energy system as a whole was going to operate would need to change. And it was felt that a number of stakeholders needed to come together. So, for example, network utilities, local authorities, community energy groups, local groups would need to come together and collaborate in terms of determining what the right solutions were to roll out at a regional level. So local area planning was premised on this approach, and defining a methodology that would enable that to happen. And 3 pilot schemes were initially set up, one in Newcastle, one in GMCA Manchester Combined Authority, and one in Bridgend, to test and develop the methodology further. And now local area energy planning, as we know it, is being commercially deployed across the UK to understand how we should decarbonise our regions within the UK. And I know Jake's from the Energy Systems Catapult is speaking a little bit later to describe it from their perspective on where things sit now. What about this energy transition, and why did local area planning, how is it identified as being required? Well, the energy system as we knew it, 10 plus years ago, was very, very different to already how it is now, and is extremely different to how it will be over the next few years as well. So traditionally we had a large centralized system. So we had coal stations burning coal, we've got a nuclear plant, we've got a centralized gas plant, an intelligent transmission system operated by the national grid to transmit that energy downstream from those generators through what were passive networks operated by the distribution network operators, and then bringing energy into our homes. But now the technology choices and the operating models have changed considerably. So we see some of those large plants closing down now. We've had the advent of local solar becoming cheaper and cheaper, people putting it on their own roofs, and also local solar farms appearing. We've got energy storage capability appearing, and battery systems again going into our homes, going into the networks. We've got wind power, a lot of offshore wind generation, but also we've got onshore generation as well. We've got more intelligent consumers, so we have more intelligent systems in our homes as well, telling us how much energy we use, and encouraging us to use energy in different ways. And we see the emergence of new energy services as well. So the whole of the infrastructure position is changing. In addition to that, in terms of policy, that's changing as well. So we have the national policy in terms of delivering on carbon targets, but we now have local policies as well. We have climate action plans emerging with local authorities, climate emergencies having been declared. None of this existed a few years ago. Now they exist, and now we need to know, how do we deploy in against these. We have initiatives, we have open communications from the government around anticipating numbers of heat pumps. We know that electric vehicles are coming now, and there's legislation in place that will prevent us from purchasing a fossil fuel vehicle in a few years' time. So consumer choices are changing as well. So the infrastructure needs to change to accommodate that. How we deploy that locally as well as nationally needs to be understood, and local area energy planning is designed to bring all of those different pieces together and then work through them with different stakeholders and understand what those deployment options really are. So there is a definition for local area energy planning. This is just taken off the Catapult site, but local area energy planning as such is a data-driven whole system approach. So it covers transport and heat and generation. It looks at it at a local level and a regional level. The output includes a fully costed spatial plan for the area. So it looks at what infrastructure, when that infrastructure could be deployed, who by, and whether that infrastructure sits, say, for example, in the private sector, public sector, if it's networks. It's equivalent to an outline design or master plan. So as Burro Happold, we do master plans all over the world. So we're very familiar with the term master plan, but these are regional plans that determine what infrastructure should be deployed, calculating the demand requirements and sizing the infrastructure, understanding where it should be placed optimally and the routing, etc. So it's based on that sort of approach. Identifies individual projects and discrete opportunities as well through the process. And as I touched on earlier, it covers all of the vectors and the sectors. So it does cover gas, it covers heat, electricity, and of course the emergence of clean green gas, as well as localized heat systems and heat networks. And it can only work if you have an integrated approach from stakeholder engagement and people come together and join together to deliver this plan. A summary of the process for those that are interested in process. So this is a very, very simplified version of it, but there is a lot of data. It's a very data-centric approach to it. There's a lot of modeling involved, and that data comes from all levels in terms of property data, urban data, network data, and then of course there's predicted modeling in terms of where solutions would fit, where they would work, and mapping those across as well, and anticipating future demands. So not just looking at current demand, of course, but future demand. So in electrification terms, if more people are electrifying to provide, to cater for their electric vehicle and electric heat, that will radically change the electrical demand patterns, not just in terms of overall demand, but when demand occurs as well, and the timing of that, and that affects the network solutions. So that modeling is quite key, and it also recognises that different solutions work in different areas. So, for example, in terms of a heat network appraisal, not everywhere could cater for a heat network. So you want to identify those areas that would work and those areas that wouldn't work. Or wouldn't work as well. So we have an optimization process that looks at that as well. And then we have outputs that are very visual so that you can understand what those outputs look like and then put that into a spatial plans. So an example of some of the outputs, this is actually taken from a published plan that was done on Greater Manchester and was delivered by the Catapult. We supported this work in Manchester. But you can see some of the visual type of outputs, and they go more granular than this, but this is some of the ones based around Bury. So, for example, you can see that the area has been mapped to understand opportunities for fabric retrofits. It's been appraising different types of archetypes in terms of the types of homes, the age of the homes, and therefore which homes might be more aligned to needing more efficiency measures than others to make heat systems work, for example. Then you've got an appraisal around heat networks. So you're looking at heat density and you're looking at therefore where heat networks would be better placed in the area where they might work commercially as well as technically. And then by definition, if you've got an area that clearly isn't suited to a heat network, then you're looking at electric heating or alternative ways of heating to cater for that as well. So you can start to plan where you would target different infrastructure solutions. And obviously this then helps the industry to cater for where it would target for deployment of schemes. In the next image, we've got solar yield assessments, but in this case, the ground mounted solar options to support the area as well. So those have been identified and where they would be located approximately based on yield, but also available network capacity. You would do a similar assessment in some areas for roof-mounted solar, so you could determine homes and which buildings have the right orientation, where they may benefit from that. And then the diagram on the right also shows network capacity, in this case, low voltage DNO capacity. So you can cross-map that, so you can see from a regional context as well as a local context where there might be issues, where there might be constraints, or indeed where there is capacity available to deploy at scale. So you can start to strategically plan with the network utility, with the generators or those developers that provide the generation, and also looking at it from a building level to determine where you want to target retrofits, solutions, home advisory services, etc., to make that happen. So all of this comes together into, in this case,
Bill, just to interrupt you for a moment, Duncan Law has said the slides aren't moving on.
Oh, they are on my screen.
Oh, they're not in mine. My eyesight was so bad, I was just trying to make sense of what's there.
So we've got 4 images on my screen at the moment.
Yeah, 4 images.
Oh, 4 images. Okay, right. That's what I thought. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, I'm walking through each image. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay. Thank you.
On the screen. So yeah, apologies if that didn't come across clearly, but I was basically talking around each one of the images on the screen. So each one of these images shows something very different, but for the same regional area. So these all come together in terms of a report and a document, but also behind this is the modelling, data analysis, and live digital information as well that can be accessed by different stakeholders to explore these plans further. So this isn't about producing a document. This is about producing a live planning capability that can be used, can be maintained, and can be updated as well. So in terms of an example, again, of this plan, what were some of the next steps that are proposed? This is quite key as a segue into the next section. Once you've done this plan, there are a number of next steps that are recommended. Some of them identify trial opportunities. This is basically saying, yeah, we're not going to do all of this all at once. Clearly, this isn't going to be rolled out in the next 2 or 3 years, but but there are areas that we could deploy quite quickly and test solutions and test opportunities as well. So there's trial areas. We need to go into wider stakeholder engagement, because having the planning process is one thing, but getting the buy-in is the other, and actually deploying is another as well. So getting uptake from stakeholders, whether that's individual consumers, for example, community groups, etc., and also developers and the network utility, and getting them to work and continue to work around the plan to understand what the deployment options would be and how to deploy, aligning it with network planning. So, for example, in the DNO, but the gas operator, electricity utility, in terms of where to deploy assets, how things might change with the network requirements. And this also needs to be monitored as you go through into actual deployment, and things need to be adjusted. Looking at heat scheme feasibilities, for example. So you've identified areas where heat schemes would work, but then you really need to go into more granular aspects in terms of understanding how they'd be deployed. Are they commercially viable? Which homes would be connected? What size the systems would be? Where the energy centres would be? And designing these schemes. So there's a scheme design process that needs to come on the back of it, that's informed by the plan, and then test these new services and technology. So it's not just about the technical infrastructure, but it's about service offerings. So different energy services, different cost levels. Are you looking at dynamic tariffs, for example? All of these things need to be then refined as you go through building on the plan, and also ensuring a continued integrated approach going forward, as I've touched on, to make sure that you start to then track this deployment rather than having a static plan that then never moves. So that's a segue into community, because some of you will be aware of the community project that we've been working on with Community Energy South and Avesco in Barkham, and supported and funded by UK Power Networks. And we've been specifically looking at community heat for some of the reasons that link to the outputs from the local area planning process, which I'll go into in a little bit more depth. But the background to this is that we were looking at regional plans with the Greater Brighton Infrastructure Panel at the time, and we were identifying regional decarbonisation opportunities, and including identifying specific projects that could be delivered to deliver carbon targets, And one of the things we recognised going through that process was the value of community energy, but also the need to directly engage with local communities and members to A, stimulate uptake and deployment, but B, to work out what those options are that could integrate systems and deliver energy, low carbon energy systems that would deliver direct value to the communities over and above individual community members making their own decisions based on those options that are available to them as individuals. So what we developed in conjunction with Community Energy South of ESCO and UK Power Networks was a local area planning approach, but a community-led approach. So this takes, if you like, the local area planning journey onto the next step, which is actual local planning and deployment with engagement with real people, but it still has that local area planning process embedded into it, so it's directly aligned with that. So it's working with community members, community energy groups, DNO and local authorities to work out, okay, for this specific locality, what is the right approach? What are those options? What are the benefits, and how do we engage with local community members to deploy, and how do we optimize around that as well? So we developed the community heat approach based on that, and have tested it in Barkham and developed some quite key insights that have come out of that as well. And that included, again, a link to the local area planning approach, appraising it from a heat and transport perspective, a building perspective, and then looking at regulatory and policy aspects, and looking at a viable roadmap for delivering the outputs that we identified. So the work streams indicated at the bottom basically break down our approach. So we've got real community engagement and events, webinars, working with communities in the village hall, and we've got heat and energy champions working directly with community representatives. We're looking at community finance and operating models that would be available to people and how that would drive down the cost to provide opportunities. We're looking at real community assets. We're looking at a system planning approach akin to the local area planning approach that I just described, but at a very granular level. And then we're looking at road mapping for the community and what those options are. Summary very quickly of the process, then all that brings together into a technical digital suite that we use to bring all of that information together, to do the modelling, and then to provide outputs that get converted then into real packs of information that can be provided to the community, as well as disseminating it through a digital platform and capability as well. So we're bringing those different finance models together, the community information, the utility network information together, and planning and understanding where these options and opportunities are for the community. Some of the insights that we developed that have come out of this work, and this is a roadmap example, so this is not what's actually deployed in the community at the moment. Some of it is deployed already by early movers, but as compared to an unplanned approach, unplanned being individual households take their own decisions. And what we found when we looked at that and consulted with real community members is that there is a lose-lose scenario here, which is an unplanned approach, which is that individuals make their own choices. They consider, finance very carefully. They perhaps don't do the level of measures that they otherwise could do with a different finance model. Therefore, there's lower deployment of efficiency measures in homes, perhaps selection of different types of heat systems that have more demand. And therefore, that results in a higher network utilisation as well, and higher bills for people as well. Net result is higher cost to consumers, higher cost to the network, which then gets socialised back to higher cost for consumers. So there is a lose-lose scenario here, which is, we've analysed, but there are opportunities around community engagement and community systems where you can look at better advice and let's say more intelligent consumers as a result of engagement, so they understand the choices available to them, and then they can make choices based on that approach and the benefits that would be given. There's also the opportunity for community assets which otherwise wouldn't manifest itself. So in this case, community renewables were identified in a number of solar PV sites. It could be actually a community owned and run heat network, although in Barkham's case, the heat network appraisal showed that would be really hard work, but there are other communities where that really would work. More heat pumps would be installed, yet despite that, there would be a saving in the infrastructure costs because those heat networks are more efficient. Those heat pumps are more efficient than alternative heat solutions, and the way that they have been installed and optimized. Working with the local supply chain means lower demand. So you get a very, very different energy system as a result, is the summary, than if you didn't do this approach. These renewable resources wouldn't be there, the integration wouldn't be there, the cost would be higher, etc. So having this roadmap and demonstrating it visually is quite key. The way we've chosen to do it is to use a digital twin technology so that you can really feel this roadmap in the sense of how it applies to the locality, and then immerse yourself in it and see data at different levels. And we cater for different data levels as well, so the community gets access to certain data that they can see and they can understand, and it's presented in different ways. But also, from an engineering sense, you get access to different data sets as well, so you can coordinate and plan on that basis as well. So this allows that stakeholder piece to all come together and people to work together collectively to deliver the solution, but also to understand it. And of course, through this technique, you can monitor the progress just as the recommended steps from the local area planning process requests. So you can feed in live information, actual asset information, see the progress, and monitor the progress through this media as well. And just to sort of summarise some of the insights that have come out of the work that we've done, is that surveying and local information and local data is really, really key to this process. Publicly available data is useful for initial screening, like EPC data, but it's very coarse. Our learning and insights showed that it could be, sometimes 25–30% off on average compared to actual survey data, which means you'd be oversizing your networks of 30% higher, and you'd be predicting the wrong bills for people and selecting the wrong measures. So whilst it's useful for a first initial appraisal, you need to go into more detail. And then we looked at the opportunity for optimizing heat systems, because currently heat systems tend to be optimized because of the way the process that they're engineered. So there's a way of optimizing them. In most cases, reducing the size, making them more efficient is really quite key to reducing consumer bills, but also network consumption and therefore network reinforcement costs. Overall community assets such as local PV could really drive down bills, presents an opportunity for community ownership as well. And there are models available already that exist that mean that you can partake in schemes to take the benefit of that to reduce your energy bills directly through energy suppliers such as Octopus as well. And the integrated planning process, we've tested it, tried it, and it does bring stakeholders together at all levels and all different demographics, and allows you to really understand and work collectively with communities as well to deliver it. That's a wrap up of what I wanted to go through. There's some useful links. I'm sure the pack will be circulated at some point, where you can see the Energy Systems Catapult information on area planning, our work on community. There's a community website, and UK Power Networks' plan as well, which all ties together for people who want to do a bit background reading to see how all of this comes together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Phil. That was a very comprehensive overview of local area energy plans and the work that is being done by Avesco, UKPNU, and I can't remember the name of the monitoring company, but anyway, thank you. I've got loads of questions. There's not many have come up in the chat box, but I think that's because you've given such a comprehensive overview. There's a lot to take in, and I would like to hand over now to Lynne McDonald from UK Power Networks, because I imagine Lynne is going to complement what you say and probably answer some questions that may have come up for other participants here too. But thank you, Phil.
Thank you.
Lynne, you need to unmute yourself. Oh, great. Welcome.
Welcome. And is the slides coming up okay?
The slides are coming up, but you know that technical phrase when you can see the side bits, like we can see the side bits.
Okay, is that better now?
No, we can still see the side bits. Oh, we've lost you altogether.
Let me try again. Bear with me.
And while we wait, yeah, I think if you just press, is it play? I've never actually done a PowerPoint. I just get everyone else.
You need to go.
Is that working for you?
Presentation mode.
So I've hit presentation mode. Let me just come out again. I'll stop sharing. This worked at the test.
It did,
Let
didn't
me
it?
try. Yeah,
Well, it
I'll
doesn't
try
matter. If
again.
we see the side bits, that's fine.
Okay, let me just do this. I'll put the PowerPoint here. Is that better?
Yes.
Fantastic. Well, good morning, everyone, and I appreciate your patience while just getting the presentation up in an accessible format. So, morning, I'm Lynne McDonald. I'm a senior engineer and manager at UKPN Networks. I'm appointed as the local area energy planning manager, and also I oversee our smart technology and data solution rollouts across our low voltage network. So ultimately, myself and the team are focusing to make sure that local authorities, community groups, and local and regional partners can make the best choices in support of their net zero plans. So just a bit of background, who are UKPN Networks? Well, we are the UK's biggest electricity distributor. And we deliver power to about 8.4 million homes and businesses across London, the South East and East of England. We serve about 19 million people, all the way from the Cromer in the east to Brighton on the south coast. I appreciate we're speaking today to colleagues from Community Energy South, and we're one of your local electricity network operators, because you're served by one of our other networked peers, as well, as you can see in this mapping. So for UKPN Networks, something that's supporting this local drive in net zeros is around data forecasting. So we cannot predict what will happen in the future, but data forecasting does support us to understand better the range of possibilities. So we run an annual report called the Distributed Future Energy Scenarios. And that forecast looks out to 2050. And within that analysis, we look at different change drivers, from the uptake of electric cars, low carbon heating, and also changes in consumer behaviours and consumption. The result of this is we produce 4 scenario worlds. And that basically gives us a different picture of what the future could look like. The specific scenario world that supports us to basically achieve net zero compliance is consumer transformation. And this is what I have here in this slide, is our consumer transformation numbers. What this helps us to do is understanding the likely uptakes allows us to ensure that we're best planning and investing to ensure that net zero emissions are achieved. It also ensures that we're making the right decisions to make sure that this low carbon pathway is achieved at lowest cost. This distribution future energy scenarios is a very useful tool when it comes to the local area energy plans and helping local authorities and community groups to make the best choice for their community and customers. Because we will be engaging, like we've done in the past, to understand what your likely uptakes are. Once we get confidence and understanding of the deliverability, we can then update our distributed future energy scenarios and then influence our investment plans as a company. I wanted to highlight is that we have recently published our 2022 distributed future energy scenarios. So what we produce and make available through our open data pages, it's ultimately an interactive summary, based also the technical reports and an interactive map. The other thing is this data can be downloaded so you can run your own analysis and research on this particular information that we've been working with forecasting experts. Last year, we've been engaging with local groups and local authorities. And in a survey that we conducted last year, 90% of local authorities responded, highlighting that they'll be using our distributed future energy scenario data to support them informing and shaping their climate action plans. So I do encourage, please check out our website, and the PowerPoint will be shared post, and I'll drop into the link later, the DFES link. So it's a very powerful tool. If you need any support or help to navigate it, please get in touch, and myself and the team will be more than happy to help. Another important thing in support of local area energy planning is understanding the climate ambitions of our communities. We've been assessing the local authority climate emergency declarations. There's about 300 local authorities around the UK, and what we've assessed so far is about 101 of the 127 that we serve across UKPN Network's licence area has declared a climate emergency. Then diving further into that is we've been assessing those that are going ahead and looking to achieve those ambitions before 2050. And we've seen that basically, certainly accelerated plans from more than half of the local authorities we serve. So that's where we wish to make sure that we're speaking to all 127 local authorities and community energy groups and local partners to understand their plans and make sure that our investment activities support their progress and accelerated activities between now and over the next 10 to 20, 30 years. As you heard from my previous presenter, local area energy planning is a new area, but one where there's been a lot of research and activity in the last couple of years. In July 2020, there was the Ofgem report, Local Area Energy Planning, the Method, identifying 4 critical areas. That's around sort of comprehensive assessment, robust evidence, and importantly, around engagement and collaboration amongst a multitude of stakeholders. Following that, then we've got our colleague Jake from the Energy Systems Catapult, publishing the future of the local area energy planning in the UK, which identified there is a need for clear guidance, roles and responsibilities. And over the month of February, the Energy Systems Catapult has been running workshops looking to inform and shape a guidance framework that they'll be looking to publish in the summer. Also, it's important that several energy vectors were working together to get the lowest pathway. So at the Energy Networks Association, that brings together members of network operators from electricity, gas, Ofgem, National Grid Electricity System Operator, we will be collaborating and also producing a specific guidance report for October this year. It's a report where all network operators are contributing to, and UKPN Networks will be leading, and that will be led by myself. So it's important that we design out what the process means, the practicalities of it, and look to try and standardise approaches. So we try and get some convergence and certainly traction in the net zero plans and their achievements. So context for UKPN Networks establishing the local area energy planning team. Well, stakeholders told us to be ambitious to support local authorities and generally also local area energy planning. So we've listened and we submitted our business plan December of last year, which sets out the business plan period from 2023 to 2028. And we've made clear commitments within our plan, echoing the response where local area energy planning is central to the net zero activity for the UK. And we've committed to grow a team up to 20 personnel, and we'll obviously keep that under review depending on the needs and wants from our stakeholders. And we're making that a reality. So I've been appointed, I've been with UKPN Networks for 12 years, primarily focused on innovation and smart grid activities, engaging with community groups and local authorities in the past, and we're basically making things happen, and we very much look forward to working with you and others across our network. Just to sort of highlight 2 of the specific commitments we've put in our business plan. The first is that we will engage with our local and regional authorities. We've got 127 local authorities, but community energy groups are a key part of that discussion as well. We will be providing our technical and strategic expertise, opening up energy data and supporting to get built robust, confident and deliverable low carbon energy plans. We will also be making sure that we'll be building data sets, planning and digital tools to try and take some of the resource and capacity constraints away from our local partners, which has been a key point of feedback. And ultimately, we'll be running against the framework for our local area energy planning activity. That's where we'll be assessing plans on their readiness, so running a Tier 1 assessment. Following that, if it's cleared onto the next stage gate of Tier 2, we'll then do deep dived engagement, looking at the optimal network investments the procurement of flexibility, the deployment of low voltage monitoring devices that I also oversee. And then laterally, if there's any more tactical strategic investments required, we'll also make sure that we're removing any barriers for investment there for infrastructure. So the key message is we're proactively engaging. We will make sure that we're supporting low carbon energy plans and ensuring that those can be delivered at lowest cost, and ensuring that we're working and engaging with all stakeholders against the particular framework that's set out. So our 4 key focuses as a team. Well, first, we've established dedicated resources. We'll continue to recruit. So I also encourage, if you're interested in joining UKPN Network's growing local area energy planning team, we will be putting out continued job roles out in the external market over the coming months and years. So please get involved. We'd love to hear from you. We are developing a local area energy planning tool. So this month, with my colleagues on the line, Rob Greenoak and Sasha, will be registering an innovation project called Net Zero Navigator. Ultimately, we'll be building a digital local area energy planning tool that will allow us to support and track local plans. It's important, as part of this innovation project, we want to co-design and make sure this works for you and our local communities. So we will be setting up a user group. So if you wish to be involved in that user group or to be kept informed of the developments of the tool, please get in touch and I will share an email at the end of this presentation. We're also looking at your open energy data needs and data services. So we did run a survey last year from November to December where we received 220 responses. And overwhelmingly, the feedback that we got was the use case for net zero planning was to support local authority-led net zero strategies and plans. We then ran a very closed focus group based on those that put their hand up to understand how we could support that even further. And the feedback was, due to resourcing, the guidance and ask from stakeholders was, please initially work with one local authority to create a detailed view of the data needs and then circulate that out for feedback, just so it's not a blank piece of paper. So that's the next steps that we'll be focusing on over the coming months. You've got innovation projects, you heard from Phil around community heat, where we're looking at how we can support a local area energy planning framework to support off-grass grid communities, very much engaging with community participants, energy vectors, the supply chain, and looking to make sure that that's something that's repeatable and something that can be put at scale. We also have another innovation project called Charge Collective, which is working with Cambridge, Norfolk, Norwich, and Redbridge local authorities. And we're looking at, certainly the findings there is for us to get improved master planning, collaboration needs to start very early on, and also detailed discussions and data support to ensure that we can provide optimized network investment plans. It's important that ultimately where we want to get to is we're supporting the low carbon technology connections within the local plans. So we're supporting both tactical connections, working with my colleague Neil Madwick in the connections department, and also the local energy team will be looking ultimately at strategic master planning, looking at longer horizon connections over time. So there's a few questions that I'd love to pose. I think Liz will be supporting me. But certainly central to our plans to achieve net zero is making sure that low carbon plans are central, but importantly, local stakeholders' voices are central to the services and sort of tools that we're providing. So I'd love to hear from you of who you are, what you would like from the low carbon team and the local area energy planning team, and ultimately where your key challenges are, where we could maybe try and unlock and provide some of that resource burden away from you. So I don't know, Liz, if the Zoom poll can be posted.
I'm just trying to launch. I'm just launching the polls now, actually, as we speak. So we're getting some answers coming up now.
Fantastic. So.
Yep, the poll is up, Liz.
Yeah, thank you.
So Liz, I can't see the poll, so if you keep me right on which question we're on to, because there's 5 questions we're keen on.
I've put out question number 1. And we've got 46% from community energy groups, 8% county councils, 5% district councils, 8% parish councils, 13% individuals, and 10% energy network operators.
Brilliant. No, thank you.
72% answered. Right, I'll launch the next question now. Do you want me to launch the next question now?
Yes, and just if you choose the option other, if you could please use the Zoom chat just to post your other response. But if we could go to the second question, so I'd love to understand what are your areas of focus in supporting and developing local area energy plans?
Oh, I'm going to just share the results because then very briefly, there you are. Then I know that a recording of them has gone out. Right, next question. Can anyone, oh, people are answering. I thought maybe nobody could see it for a moment. So just to let you know, because you can't see them, Lynn, we've got people are slowly participating in this question. I think for quite a few people, it might all be quite new. And so there's a lot to take in.
It takes time to read.
Oh, and it takes time to read. How... I forgot that.
Can you choose more than one on that one?
Well, it's a multiple choice. I don't know. Try and see. And let us know.
Yes, because there will definitely be more than one then.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I can do more than one.
Oh, great. Yes, Sally, I quite understand. I think, look, there's lots of people that are just interested in community energy, and actually we seem to be running sort of two levels of webinars at the moment. So we have these big picture ones, and then we've got ones that are helping people get projects going. So I'll give you a couple more. I'll give you another 20 seconds. Actually, it looks like everyone who's participated has. So I can share those results. I don't know. Okay, would you like the next poll?
Yeah, out of curiosity, Liz, what was the sort of top selection for supporting and developing?
Yeah, let's have a look. Yeah, what's your area of focus? Next one was, how advanced are you in developing a local area energy plan? I think there's going to be quite a minority that are advanced.
And that's okay. I think this is really helpful for us to understand where you are in considering developing or getting involved in local area energy plans, because then it allows us to maybe focus the discussion with yourselves, and of course we can follow up separately.
I think there's going to be, well, in the questions, I'm sure we'll see, I think there's a need for a lot of support for communities to develop plans, both mentoring, road mapping, as well as financial support. So yes, 35 to 39% have got no activity. Just under 20% want to support LAEPs. 11% have identified high-level decarbonisation actions. Okay, we're back to 70. I'm going to end that poll now.
Yep,
Okay.
and thank you. And I think the important thing here is it's no matter where you are in those stages, we will help you across each of your journeys, and obviously make sure that our service is bespoke to your local needs. But yeah, Liz, if we could move on to the fourth question, if possible, just to understand the challenges that community groups and local areas are facing when developing plans.
And you'll see in the chat box, a lot of people here have never heard of a local area energy plan before. So, they're really here to just learn what they are and how to, just the very basics to begin with. It's great though, lots of people seem to want to develop plans. And I guess people will be interested in how you can support them.
Mm-hmm.
Can everyone else, just out of interest, because I can see the poll
I can see.
ratcheting up, you can all see that. Okay.
Yeah, we can see question 4.
Oh, good. Okay, I think I don't think anyone else is responding on that one. So but you can't see the results, can you, Lynn? So 49% have said funding is a challenge. 54% have said resource capacity. Please, could you share the developing results again? I will see if I can. 51% say they're lacking in skills and technical expertise, and 41% say the challenge is a level of agency or influence to external stakeholders.
Okay, that's really helpful. So thank you everyone for their participation. And the last question for this one, before we go to sort of free text and Zoom chat, is just what would be your wants and needs from us as a network operator to support your local plans?
And I didn't save the questions, so we're going to have to ask people to put things in the chat box. I'm sorry, it just came up as question 1 and question 2.
That's okay. So if you can please, to be honest, it allows people probably a bit more control. And please do make me aware of what you would want and need from us as a network operator and the local area energy planning team to help you. Obviously, you've highlighted some of your challenges around funding. So it's whether we support you in bids, for example, to the funding available through some of the local government decarbonisation pots. And also, for example, if you're starting to do climate action plans, whether you want to have those investment discussions with us as a company.
Right, what's it? Are people replying? I can't see any responses in the chat box.
There's plenty of good information in the chat. Never fear, Liz. For us.
Thanks, Neil. Oh yes, something just okay.
Yeah, there's lots. Lynn, you can't look in the chat, can you? So there's a lot about signposting, support, understanding where to get sources of funding, roles and responsibilities, more detailed heat maps, and network plans.
There's actually loads of questions. So
yeah.
what I propose we do is complete your presentation. Then we've got Jake. I think he's just got 4 or 5 slides. Jake from Energy Systems Catapult, and then we'll go out to questions.
Yeah, of course, Neil. Thank you so much for that. And so Liz, if I move on to my next slide,
Please do. Yes,
of course. So I appreciate everyone's support. So just on, as I highlighted, that my colleague Rob and I, we're registering this Net Zero Navigator innovation project this month. So we're going to be creating this local area energy planning tool, very much supporting your plans and helping us track and make sure that we're looking at the lowest cost pathways, looking at flexibility options, ensuring that low voltage monitoring is deployed at the right sites, and ultimately ensuring that we're doing this at the least cost in supporting your community area. But what I'd love to do is just consider that postcard from the future. So if you were to send that postcard to my local area energy planning team, telling us that this tool has empowered your local and regional authority to deliver their decarbonisation strategies, what would you have thought, looking back, was the key design functions and features that supported you? So what type of things would you love to see that tool doing? So if you could post that into the chat, and certainly obviously we'll have several other opportunities moving forward for you to get involved in that tool design over the coming months and year. So I don't know, Neil, if you could help me out as well, please, just on the responses coming through in the chat.
There's so many comments coming through in the chat that I welcome people unmuting themselves. But is this the end of your presentation, Lynn?
And there's just 2 more slides.
Oh, okay. Well, people will keep commenting. So if you progress with your slides, and I think people are going to keep on commenting in the chat box in answer to your questions.
Oh, thank you. And then just sort of 2 other areas is we do have, you may have already used it, but it's just a signpost that we do have an open data portal. So that's where we're sharing network sort of static and dynamic information. We're highlighting where we do have low carbon technologies connected. We do have this in useful sort of spatial views in charts, dashboards, and you can extract and download this data. We're continually wishing to understand that if our open energy data needs are meeting what you require now and into the future. So the other thing that I'd love to understand is what data or data services would help you progress your local plans. Again, if you could please use the Zoom chat just to post that in, and it might help just with the flurry of chats, maybe putting the number 7 in front of it.
We've got Bill Langley, hydro development engineer, says an online modelling tool where loads and generation can be simulated to see whether the network can accommodate them.
Yeah, there's Lynn, there's a fair bit about obviously more data sets at LV level, understandably, as you would expect. Yeah, a fair bit about sort of matching or modelling, you know, of their need against our capacity availability, which I think we would recognise, wouldn't we? And then a number of suggestions about, you know, being able to do, you know, modelling, scenario modelling, and sort of Monte Carlo analysis on things, and that type of thing, to enable local actors to look at different scenario opportunities as well.
Yeah.
So plenty in there. And
yeah, we'll return to this shortly. Lynn, would you like to put up your final question? I think this is.
Yes, final one, and probably certainly looking at we had about 40% I think highlighted that they were community energy groups, is we'd love to know where you see our role as a network operator and a local area energy planning team for an electricity network operator supporting community energy groups being part and central of the local area energy planning developments. So let us know how you want us to support you in that planning discussion, connecting you to local authorities, or if you have any other ideas for us to take into account.
I don't think, unless it's me, I can't see many answers coming up for that one. Oh no, there we are.
It takes time to type.
I'm just very impatient, aren't I? I've always got my eye on the time.
I think the summary there, Lynn, is, or certainly some early views is important to, as we're doing here, making sure that community groups are involved early in the discussions and any decision making and planning, so that they're at the beginning with local authorities and other energy stakeholders and businesses, and you know, so they're there from the start. Yep, I think that's a good summary.
Which is an interesting proposal, given that there are, you know, community energy groups are springing up all the time, and in the future there will be more who may not have been there at the very beginning of your discussions. And just thinking ahead here a bit.
Well, just to close, I think just to appreciate everyone's time. I think certainly my message is we've made a commitment as UKPN Networks for a local area energy planning team within our business plan. We see it being very important and central to net zero plans being achieved, hence why we've actually stood up the local area energy planning team ahead of any draft and final determination for our business plan. We're making this a reality. We will continue to recruit. If you need any support or help, please get in touch. And certainly if you've got any ideas or things that you'd want from our services, again, reach out to me. I'm very much wish to make sure that the services that we provide ultimately unlock your local plans and do that at least cost. So I appreciate the time with all of you today and look forward to working with you over the next few years. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Lynn. I'm going to hand over to Jake now, who only got a few slides, which is good because we've got a lot of questions to put to all three of you.
Thanks, Liz. Can you hear me okay, first and foremost?
Yeah, great.
Super. The next thing I'm going to do is just attempt to share my screen. So, and I'll get rid of the side bits.
Oh yeah, thank you.
So, 1 second while I do that. Okay, can you see that okay? Can you see that?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, sorry. Okay, so hi everybody, and a big thank you to Liz and Ollie for the invitation to speak. I just have a brief update from my perspective. So first and foremost, I'm Jake North, Development Manager for the Place team at Energy Systems Catapult. So that's the team that look after local area energy planning at the moment within the Catapult. And as you heard from Phil earlier, ESC were the pilots for local area energy planning through the Smart Systems and Heat programme. I'm just going to give you a little bit of an update today on where LAEPs currently are and the developments that are taking place, and also share with you some interesting wider benefits work that the UKRI and PwC have recently published that very much supports the need for coordinated local energy transition. Just for those who aren't aware of us, who Energy Systems Catapult are, we're a not-for-profit organisation that is part funded and overseen by Innovate UK. Our role really is to accelerate the transition to net zero through connecting different stakeholders together across central government, local government, academia, community, of course, is really important. And we essentially connect those stakeholders through the development of different service platforms. So we have the ability within the Catapult to model the UK's energy system nationally, regionally, locally, and at building level. And that is really where we formed the methodology for local area energy planning from. And we're also quite involved with the Smart Local Energy System demonstrator projects, which are around aggregating the projects identified in the local area energy planning into new and innovative business models to attract private investment and to drive them forward. So I just thought it would be worth recapping and hopefully nicely tying in with Phil and Lynne's excellent presentations earlier on the current process for local area energy planning. And Lynne referenced earlier some of the development work on the guidance framework, which I thought I'd just cover off. I think it's probably just worth just honing in again on the 7 steps of the current local area energy planning process a little bit. And really the two, I guess for me, the 2 takeaways today in terms of what a LAEP will provide would be, first and foremost, what it does is it identifies the key stakeholders who are responsible for and impacted by the net zero transition across a region. And it brings those stakeholders together to form a plan to understand what you need to do, by when, across which area, and how much it's going to cost to decarbonise by whenever the climate emergency end date is that you put into the modelling tool. The second valuable piece of local area energy plan is the simulation modelling itself. So as well as mapping out the current energy system, the modelling that we developed will then look to assess the most effective pathway to reaching net zero, and it will zone different areas across a county or a district, which I'll come on to in a second, to assess what the most cost optimal pathway will be. So the process at the moment, without going into this in too much detail for the sake of time, we've heard from Phil and Lynne around the importance of identifying and engaging stakeholders. I've given an example on that for London Borough on the left-hand side as to who some of those stakeholders could be. We categorise them into primary and secondary. So what we're looking to do with local area energy planning is to form a regional energy consortium for action that would comprise of the network operators who would be primary stakeholders, along with the local authorities, and of course community energy groups, who would be a really important part of that and should have a seat at the table, as well as of course the net zero hubs, the LAEPs, we've got here London Skills for Growth, etc. And we're very much looking within step 2 to then pull and coordinate the plans across different areas of the energy transition, fuel poverty targets, air quality, obviously the climate emergency targets, an understanding of the network operators, investment plans for the area. In step 3, we're creating and we're understanding and we're mapping what the network looks like now. And that really is using network data from the likes of UK Power Networks. It's pulling in data sets from ONS and BEIS. It's looking at socioeconomic factors, and it's creating our picture of what we need to do in steps 4 and 5. One thing just to mention on that as well, it's fantastic to hear around the LEAP tool that UKPN are developing. Similarly at the Catapult as well, we're looking to digitise that creation of the local energy network to support local authorities and community energy groups to assess the impacts on the substations of potential projects as well. So we will then run that through the modelling in a similar way to what Phil showed you earlier, to then start looking at, okay, well, what are our system choices? How suitable are gas networks for hydrogen? What happens if we put air source heat pumps over here? What does it do to the network? And we start assessing the different choices. We present that plan back to the stakeholders, and we look to support the lead and implementation. Now, the guidance framework that we're doing, we were commissioned by UKRI to develop an updated methodology for local area energy planning. We don't envisage those 7 steps to hugely radically change, but be more iterative and refined to really think about, in particular, steps 6 and 7, increasing roles and responsibilities, ensuring that the plan is handed to organisations that are best suited to lead it. Local authorities, as we know, have difficulties with resource constraints. The role of the new net zero hubs is an important one in terms of that technical coordinator. Since we developed this approach, we've got new considerations, things like the role of flexibility that we're now adapting into our modelling. How do we make more room on the system that we have, working with UK Power Networks, for example, to try and do that, and look at how flexibility can support constraints, as well as doing far more sort of work on the preparation stage. So we are in the process of updating and revising that, and our approach here is to make sure that local area energy planning has a best practice standardised approach to delivery. One thing that I wanted to sort of touch on today that I think the Community Heat project really brings out well is when we look at LEAP at the moment, it's currently delivered and has been historically delivered at either county or district level. So we're doing the 10
two more minutes, Jake, because we've got lots of questions. So sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So we're doing all 10 districts for GMCA and Peterborough, North Yorkshire, in working with Burro. We zone out those energy system choices at primary substation level anyway, but there's an increased need to think about how we tailor that modelling to communities and neighbourhoods. So we are working with a community energy group at the moment to develop a neighbourhood plan, which takes those LEAP approaches similar to Community Heat. So we think the Community Heat project is great, and we support more of that. Very finally, on my last sort of 60 seconds, Liz, what I'll do is I'll share the PwC and UKRI report on the benefits of local area energy planning. But very quickly, there's been some really good economic analysis that's been done around the benefits of a place-based coordinated transition to net zero versus an uncoordinated. And we can see at the bottom, at the top left, that not coordinating those scenarios to meet the targets that the CC have mandated for net zero requires 195 billion of investment to deliver 57 billion of energy savings, which could deliver over 400 billion of wider social benefits. That's analysed across 6 city regions. PwC have estimated that doing place-based, undertaking a place-based coordinated approach will achieve 107 billion pounds of energy savings on a much lower investment scale and deliver much more social benefits. because we're coordinating investment and we're targeting our interventions at communities and areas that need them the most, rather than continuing to work in silos. So that was it for me, Liz, really just a whistle-stop tour of the things that we're working on and developing at the moment, but I will get these slides across, and in particular the report, the PwC report, across to you, because I think it's really important to see the first economic analysis done on the benefits of the local transition.
Lovely, thank you so much, Jake. I just want to put to the three speakers, I don't know who's the best person to answer this, but from the chat, it seems clear, and this was a question I had. You know, a local area energy plan is not, there's no statutory requirement, and who do you each see as being the person, as being the organisation or the body that would kind of hold a local area energy plan? Because lots of people are saying, oh, we don't know if our local authority is doing one, but I don't believe it. It's not the responsibility of the local authority. So who's going to, where is that focus? Where is the holding of that going to be?
So I'm happy to kickstart that off.
Thank you,
Liz, because that's part of the current sort of guidance update that we're doing at the moment. It's a really, really good question. Historically, it's been local authorities, and that's where the challenges with resource come from. We recommended as part of the guidance framework that there needs to be local technical delivery hubs to coordinate this transition. Now, the role of the net zero energy hubs could be quite key in coordinating local area energy plans. There is no mandation at the moment in terms of who leads it, but what we are starting to see across the London boroughs, for example, and what we're advocating for, is the setup of regional energy consortiums and shared responsibility across primary stakeholders to lead the plan that could incorporate the network operators, the local authorities, and community energy groups. We're not quite there yet, but I personally feel that the role of the net zero hubs as a coordinator for local area energy planning could be a really interesting one going forwards.
thank you. Are you able to send us information about net zero hubs? Because I have to say I'm not fully aware of them, and so there may be other people who aren't as well.
Liz, it was in the chat. It's the rebranding of the work that John and co are already doing at the energy hubs.
Oh, right, thank you. Sorry, John, you're here somewhere. My apologies. We've David Watt from the Energy Saving Trust in Wales had 2 or 3 questions, so I want to, yes, Angie, thank you, Kate. Absolutely. And yeah, John and Kate, thank you. So David, do you want to ask your questions?
Yeah, apologies, I had to take another call, so I've missed the questions. I think some have been answered, and yeah, just firstly, thanks to all for the presentations, really useful stuff, and also the organisers this as well. Yeah, I think a lot is just around resourcing and how we resource this, which isn't actually a question I put in, but I think that's a major issue, is how we resource all this work and ensure that communities and community energy sector can be fully engaged with this. Lots of positives coming out of this. Interesting UKPN's comments on this as well, just looking what support is needed, but just how we provide these resources to enable the community energy sector to be fully engaged in this from the start.
Anybody able to answer that? And I'll open that to John and Kate as well, because you may have something to say on it.
Yeah, maybe just to kick off, Liz, and thank you very much for your question. I think we recognise, and certainly the feedback around the resource capacity constraints, and that's why as UKPN Networks we are standing up this dedicated team to support and help sort of local authorities, community groups and local actors, the hubs, ultimately achieve their plans, so we can support in lessening that burden, sharing our technical expertise, and also, for example, in supporting from our bidding experience and also planning and connections. I think the other thing is that we are in the 21st century with digital tools. It's trying to make sure that we try and create sort of efficiency and optimize the focus of the discussion, and actually making sure that information is easily accessible, understood, and providing that training. So I think certainly from a UKPN Network standpoint, we're investing in at least a team of 20 we will be proactively engaging. And I think the key area where I ask for help is I appreciate there's many stakeholders within a local authority, a community energy group. At times, the stakeholders, there is some attrition. So I think the key thing that I'll also be focusing on with UKPN Networks and our external colleagues is building that stronger sort of stakeholder database, ensuring we're having those proactive conversations with the right people right from the start, and signposting, and certainly sharing with you our sort of thought leadership position within the energy sector in shoulder to shoulder with Energy Systems Catapult, wider supply chain energy vectors, because we need to make this as easy, simple as possible. And also, I think it's being nimble, so listening to feedback and responding to that in time.
I'll just add a point as well from a community perspective that what Jake referenced, the typical local area planning currently is delivered at sort of a local authority district level. The community process is to empower local people to engage in this process as well. So information packs, frameworks, that one of the outcomes of community is writing the book on advising other people how to do this, how to engage with it, how to take part, and how to deliver aspects of it. So that effectively helps to share the resource on this and move away in the local context, at least, of relying on a central body of whoever that is to trigger this off and deliver it. It empowers local communities to actually start to develop this as well. And that ties in with what Community Energy South are doing with their Kickstart and Pathways programs as well, to enable communities to start to explore this. So there's another aspect to this as well in terms of supporting people to engage.
Thank you. John or Kate, do you want to say anything on this?
Yeah, I'm just happy to chip in. Yeah, from the Greater South East Energy Hub's perspective, yeah, we're the resourcing point is a really good one. We're hoping to hear next week exactly what resourcing we're going to get over the next 3 years in terms of supporting this sort of work. We're definitely going to be expanding our team like UK Power Networks have, and I know local authorities have been recruiting into their own internal teams to get climate emergency leads and more people in-house. But yeah, I would say I really see community energy and community type approaches as being so important to the next phase of delivery of decarbonisation. We don't want this to be councils or whoever doing it to communities, but you're the ones on the ground that are going to be crucial to designing and investing in these projects as much as anyone. So yeah, really keen that we all work together.
Yeah, just to add to that, in the Northwest, again, yeah, resourcing issue. I've just emailed Electricity Northwest to ask them if they're going to be setting up a 20-person team, because that's a fantastic resource, and that will, you know, was a bit of a game changer really. So I'll see what Electricity Northwest come back with. But I kind of think at the moment things are happening wherever the momentum and the motivation is the most present. In the Northwest, that tends to be from grassroots up, so community energy groups. At county level, local authority level, there's some movement, but not fast enough. I don't know whether many of the districts, certainly county council level, don't really haven't engaged with local area energy plans. Obviously, Phil's been working with GMCA, they're very engaged, they've got their 2038 target, and they're quite engaged with that. But there's a big disparity between different regions, but the common the kind of commonality is that community energy groups are more moving on this faster with a greater motivation and momentum than others. So I think the key is to support those that want to push forward to do that, because that ripple effect happens, and you see that with community heat. Thanks.
Thank you. I've been trying to make notes of who wants to ask questions, and I've kind of lost track of everything. So we've got 9 minutes left. So just raise your hand if you have a question, I think. Unless, Neil, did you pick out any questions that you thought desperately needed answering?
No, I think what we'll probably do, Liz, which will be useful, is if we, and you can't you capture these questions at the end that are in the chat, and then we'll produce we can consolidate, can't we, and provide an FAQ to some of these, because some of these are more complex than others.
That would be great. I'm very conscious that the range of, people, there are people who've come who are completely new to community energy and want to do something in their community. And I imagine some of this language will have been quite intimidating and overwhelming, but and yet others will have been involved in this for a long time, and so are very comfortable with it all. But so is there, do you have more questions? Does anyone want to ask a question? Don't be intimidated. Okay, well, it looks like everybody's had a very full morning.
I'd like to reply, Liz. Steph Osborne has made a comment about heat pumps. And I wonder, do you want to speak a little bit more about that, Steph? And perhaps we can have a quick discussion about it.
Is she still here? Oh, she is, yes.
Oh, yeah. Am I allowed to speak?
Yes, oh, absolutely, yes.
I've just, been, very well connected with a group of new builds that were forced basically into having their air pump heating for about the last 7 years. They were built specially, really good houses, underfloor, all the works and the thing in the garden. And I'm just really concerned that there are companies jumping on the bandwagon, same as when the solar came out. I mean, there was so many businesses that were going so well. It was, and I believe in solar panels, definitely. But with the air pumps, I do worry in case these are just another business that are going to make older people in particular worry about getting rid of their gas boilers and jumping into this air pump system, which I was with an engineer the other day that did his degree in these, and he just said, oh, they're great for cooling and fridges and freezers, but they're not for heating, especially not this country. And so I'm worried about not being involved with these kind of projects, that I don't get a chance to say my thoughts, like battery disposal, etc. People seem very motivated it going forward into certain areas that I'm not sure I agree with.
Nikki?
Among the pigeons.
Yeah, no, thanks, Steph. I mean, I think I might like to quickly say something about this, and then perhaps other people, such as Phil, can say something as well, maybe. I think you're right. I think that air source heat pumps, can have a bad reputation. I think that this country's learned a lot about putting them in properly over the last 10 years, and I think that installation has been getting a lot better. I mean, I hear very good feedback about heat pumps. But as part of the community heat project, that kind of community interaction, the peer reviewing of installations, that kind of feedback has been really important within the project to strengthen the technical the technical strengths, in a way, of the installers. So we build on that installer network to make sure that installs are correctly done through that review, that feedback process.
Yeah, I live in the New Forest, and it's an area which obviously a lot of the industry is related to. Wood, log burners, that sort of thing. Yeah. And people are getting very scared, that they're going to be banned and things like that, because it's their only source of heating. And well, most people I know, I mean, maybe I live in a poor area or so, most people I know are not looking at buying new cars or having new heating if they don't need to. It does concern me a lot. People seem to be very worried about other things rather than this. I think we're galloping towards something and making people very worried.
Sure. Has anyone else got any comments they'd like to make on this?
Well, it sounds like it would be a useful thing to set up an event in your area, and where people would get a chance to speak about these things, have a little, energy heating event, invite some suppliers. There might even be some people in your area who have installed some of this technology that you could visit.
We are holding an eco fair in the
Right.
summer. I've put it on the chat actually. So thank you. Yeah, I just put on the chat anyone that's interested in coming to the eco fair to get in touch with the clerk.
And let us know if there's any way we can support you on that.
Yeah.
Might be able to find you some speakers or something like that.
Thank you.
Michael wants to add something.
Yeah, thanks, Liz. Yes, and I understand the issue about heat pumps and about about where the industry is appropriate. One thing is just interesting is that today I was looking actually following a thread from John Taylor on the Energy Hub and bits and pieces of maybe about energy efficiency and heating. I didn't realize until quite recently that actually most combi boilers are not working as they're intended to, because most installers don't actually know how to do them, how to set them up correctly. So that almost everybody in this country is probably burning too much gas because they're not being operated correctly. A little website I found was heatinghub.co.uk. I'll put a note in the chat about it, which basically says that if you cut your flow temperature, then you make the efficiency boiler more efficient and you still provide heating correctly. If we've been installing combi boilers for the last 20 years almost, and we're still not getting them right, we need to make sure we do a better job about training our installers when we come to doing heat pumps. But a heat pump that's installed correctly and is explained to the user how it works will almost certainly will provide the heat that's required for most houses. There's a lot of evidence for that.
Thank you, Michael. Right, there's lots of comments going up in the chat again. Oh, John, over to you. John Taylor. No?
Sorry, I'm just lost the windows and buttons there. I was just going to add on the heat pumps and insulation. At the moment, every council and the energy hubs are running the Green Homes grants, local authority delivery and sustainable warmth grants. So that's up to £10,000 for low-income households for insulation, solar panels and renewable heating systems like heat pumps. I just wanted to say, as part of that, we are working really closely with the supply chain in the region and to make sure that anyone offering systems like that are properly accredited, and each house will have a bespoke kind of whole house retrofit assessment done as part of that process. So yeah, anecdotally, I've seen, yeah, there's a lot of that general promotion around solar panels and heat pumps, but through these council schemes, the companies involved with those should certainly be vetted and designing good systems.
Thank you, John. There was something I was going to say and it's popped out of my head, but it's 11:30. So are there any further questions? And or do our speakers have anything further they would like to say?
Just a huge thanks to Community Energy South, Liz, and all organised, and Ollie and my fellow presenters. And I really appreciate everyone's participation in some of the questions that we had, and certainly look forward to working with you, and certainly with Jake and Phil and others within the sector. We'll make sure that we're collaborating together to ensure that your plans do come to fruition, and always open for feedback, always humbled to do things differently. So please do give that feedback to us.
Thank you so much, Lynn. I've had a question from my colleague. I'll put it to Neil. When do you think you can get the FAQs out?
Well, I think it'll be a collaborative effort, Liz. Let's review them first. You know, there's a number of presenters on the call, aren't they? Who all have a view as well. And there'll be some questions that we, you know, as UKPN Networks, clearly, you know, have a view on, but it may not be, you know, a view that, you know, we can share on all these questions, as you understand. So, yeah, but I'm sure we'll do our best in the next couple of weeks to get some answers for you.
And there's a further question from Alwyn Watson about how are you planning to integrate energy storage into the local energy system? I think that might be about to launch off on a whole other topic, but
I think the key message is we're technology agnostic. But ultimately, I think what we need to do is make sure that the local area energy planning tool that we develop, amongst others, is designing. Obviously, local communities will have their view of what and where, and obviously we'll be providing information to understand and sort of give information to consider other ways of doing things efficiently and optimally. So certainly we'll be supporting all technologies, including electricity storage.
Just add to that, Liz, from my perspective. So yeah, it's a really, really good question. It's one of the fundamental changes that's happened since the original development of the LEAP. So what we would do within the modelling at the moment is work on to understand the constraints across the system, and then model and start thinking about how storage can create more room in the system that we have, and how we can coordinate those measures flexibly. Yeah.
I have a question. Oh, sorry. Sorry, I just have a question. Is there a template for a local area energy plan which we could all use?
When you say template, I mean in terms of the output?
For the document that it looks like at the end?
That's a good question, because we've kind of recently revised the output and updated it for GMCA, so it will be published. In terms of a template, not necessarily, but one of the things that we are looking at, interestingly enough, is how to work and basically provide tools and training across different stakeholders to be able to undertake different component parts of local area energy planning. But there isn't sort of a set template. What there will be is a guidance framework which we publish that talks about what you need to do in each step in detail, but the output reports can vary quite dramatically depending on the area.
Okay, all right, thank you. Phil, you don't have anything to say on that?
Well, in that case, thank you very much, everyone, for your participation. We're 11:33, so I think we've done quite well. I'll save the chat and send it out to you. And yeah, thank you for joining. Do message us with further questions. Thank you, Martin. And thank you so much to our speakers. It's really appreciated.
Thank you.
Bye.